The wind screamed across the frozen steppe, carrying with it fine shards of ice that cut into the skin like tiny blades. This was the world of the last ice age, a land of endless tundra where winter reigned for most of the year. Towering walls of ice loomed far to the north, pushing the cold deep into the heart of the continents. The sun was pale, its warmth weak, and survival was a daily battle. In this world, herds of colossal beasts roamed the land. Woolly mammoths, standing over 4 meters tall, moved in slow, deliberate migrations, their curved tusks sweeping the air like ancient scythes. They were armoured in thick hair and fat perfectly built for the cold. Alongside them wandered shaggy rhinoceroses, giant elk with antlers spanning wider than a man was tall, and bison so massive they dwarfed modern cattle. For the small bands of humans who lived here, these animals were more than just creatures. They were survival itself. One successful hunt meant meat, fat, and marrow for weeks, hides for clothing and shelter, bones for tools and weapons. But the hunt was a dangerous gamble. A wrong move could mean death, crushed under tons of muscle and bone. The hunters were not mighty warriors with steel and armour. They were fragile, armed only with sharpened stones, wooden spears, and fire. Yet, against all odds, they devised ways to outthink, outmaneuver, and bring down the giants of the Ice Age. No hunt began without careful preparation. These were not random chases. They were coordinated efforts, built on knowledge passed down for generations. The hunters studied the herds for days, sometimes weeks. They watched the pattern, where the animals grazed, where they drank, when they rested. A weak, old, or injured mammoth was the target, for bringing down a healthy adult could mean disaster. The clan gathered around the fire at night, whispering strategies. The most experienced hunters, the elders, decided the plan. Communication was vital, for the hunters would have to move like one organism, every person knowing their role. One method was the drive hunt. The hunters would spread out in a wide arc, using noise, fire, and movement to push the mammoth toward a trap, a hidden pit, a frozen river, or the edge of a ravine. Spears were readied, their flint tips sharpened to a razor's edge. Some were designed to be thrown with an atlatl, a spear thrower that gave extra power and range. Others were heavy stabbing spears, meant to be driven deep into flesh at close range. The hunters painted their faces with ash, not for magic, but to blend into the land. The wind direction was checked. The mammoth must not smell them. Failure meant the herd would flee, and the hunters would go hungry. In the frozen silence before dawn they moved out, each footstep crunching in the snow, hearts pounding. Somewhere ahead, the great beast waited. The hunt began with a sudden burst of sound. Shouts, and the beating of sticks on hollow logs echoed across the plain. Torches blazed, casting wild shadows on the snow. The mammoth herd stirred, uneasy. Then came the panic. The hunters' wall of noise and fire drove them forward, their great feet churning up the earth. The chosen target, an older bull, stumbled slightly. The hunters pressed the advantage. Spears flew, some striking deep into thick fur and muscle. Blood steamed in the cold air. The mammoth roared, swinging its tusks in fury, scattering snow in great arcs. One wrong step from the hunters could mean instant death, crushed or impaled. But they were patient, circling, striking from a distance, retreating before the giant's charge. Each wound drained its strength. At last the beast's knees buckled. It swayed, let out one final cry that echoed across the steppe, and collapsed into the snow with a thunderous crash. Silence followed, broken only by the hunter's heavy breathing. The danger was over. Now began the second part of the work, turning the massive carcass into life-giving resources for the clan. The hunters wasted nothing. The mammoth's thick hide was cut into strips for clothing, boots, and the covering of tents. The dense bones became tools, weapons, and even the framework for shelters, covered in hide and snow to keep out the bitter wind. The tusks, carved with stone blades, became art, symbols of the hunt, and gifts for trade with other clans. The meat was carefully butchered, fresh cuts roasted over the fire, while most was dried or frozen in the natural cold, preserved for months. Fat was prized, melted into rich oil for cooking and lamps. The marrow inside the giant bones was a concentrated source of nutrition, sucked out eagerly by the hunters. Around the campfire that night, The story of the hunt was told again and again, becoming part of the clan's shared memory. Children listened wide-eyed, learning the skills they would one day need. For Ice Age humans, every successful hunt was more than just food. It was proof that intelligence, courage, and unity could overcome the mightiest beasts on Earth. And though the mammoths are gone now, their spirit still walks with us, a reminder of the time when humans were not the rulers of the world but fragile survivors, fighting for each breath in a land of ice and giants. If the mammoth was a walking fortress, the woolly rhinoceros was a living spear. Thick, shaggy hair covered its massive frame, and from its head jutted a horn nearly a metre long, sharp enough to gut a man with one swing. Unlike the mammoth, which might flee when threatened, the woolly rhinoceros often chose to attack. This made it one of the most dangerous animals of the Ice Age. Hunting such a beast required even greater caution and strategy. The hunters would wait near a watering hole, hidden behind ridges or snowbanks, using the wind to mask their scent. The target would be a lone rhino, separated from its herd by injury or age. The plan was to wound it from a distance, forcing it to chase one hunter, the decoy, while the others closed in from the sides. The decoy's task was the most dangerous of all, to run just fast enough to stay ahead, leading the rhino towards soft snow or slippery ice where its footing failed. In that moment of weakness, the hunters would rush in, driving spears into its flanks. The roar of the dying animal was deafening, and even as it fell, the hunters kept their distance until it lay still. A single rhino provided thick hides, enormous amounts of meat, and horn that could be carved into tools and weapons. But to take one down was to walk on the edge between glory and death. Many hunters never returned from such a fight. For thousands of years, humans and the great beasts of the Ice Age shared the land. But slowly, the world began to change. The ice retreated, forests replaced the open tundra, and the grasslands that fed the herds disappeared. With fewer animals to hunt, every successful kill became more precious. And yet, the hunting itself may have hastened the end. Some say it was the warming climate alone that doomed the mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses. Others believe the relentless pressure of human hunting pushed them past the point of recovery. Whatever the cause, one by one, the giants vanished. The last mammoths survived only on remote islands, their footsteps fading into history. For the hunters, it was the end of an era. No more would the ground shake with the tread of mammoth herds. No more would the shadow of a rhinoceros fall across the snow. Yet their legacy endured, in stories told around the fire, in carvings etched into bone, and in the skills passed down to new generations. The people had faced monsters of flesh and blood, and through unity, intelligence, and courage they had survived. Long after the giants were gone, their memory remained a part of the human spirit, a reminder of the time when we lived in a world ruled not by us, but by beasts beyond imagining, and learned to fight them with nothing but our hands, our tools, and our will to live.